Menopause. It's a challenging time. If you're like most of us, you're confused, you hear conflicting information, you don't know who to trust, who to believe, everyone's saying different things, you're scared, you're not feeling right. You are definitely not alone. And that's why I'm recording this podcast because the challenge isn't finding a good qualified menopause doctor is universal. Doesn't matter if you're in the US or Europe or Asia, it's the same problem. And so this podcast is for everyone globally, right? It's for anyone who's looking for help in guiding them through the menopause journey and beyond. Because as a gerontologist, I'm concerned about your future self and I want you to be in the best condition. And Alzheimer's and dementia, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, all of these things start decades before the symptoms hit. So it's a great chance to take advantage of this menopause transition to improve our health, to get better, to get stronger, faster. And it's a wonderful chance to do that. So I know it's sometimes there's a lot of negativity around it, but let's look at the positive things. There's so much to look forward to. So take this chance to find someone to guide you through this. And I know if you're listening now, you're probably looking for that, and I'm going to help you through it. And keep in mind that I am biased for bioidentical hormone therapy, but this information and this podcast is not only for those who want to be prescribed hormones, it's for anyone who is exploring it, don't want it, doesn't matter. This is how to find someone who's qualified to guide you with whatever it is that you need. So we're going to cover why it's so hard to find a doctor, my own journey in finding a menopause doctor and guide me through this whole thing, why it's so important to find someone good, and then the different routes on where to find the specialists and not only doctors. Okay. And then when you are if you said, I want a doctor, that's it. I'm going to show you the 4 best ways to find a physical doctor and then what to look for in that doctor. And then the 10 red flags to run the other way. Okay. Find someone else. So generally, most doctors are not trained in menopause. That's why we have this big problem and all this confusion and women who are not being treated for menopause. In the US, only 7% of doctors feel qualified to guide a woman through menopause. That is horrifically low. And only about 20% of OBGYN residents get menopause training. And that training that they get is not really good, to be honest. This is coming from the doctors I've interviewed. Okay, it's not like I went to medical school, right? But I've interviewed so many doctors who tell me they were not prepared for this. This is antiquated information. If they're lucky to get some kind of training, it's usually outdated information. And when you think about it, in the US, there are about 19,000 OBGYN practitioners. This is out of, I think it's 2020 information. So, okay, it's a little bit more. But only 1,000 of them are trained by the Menopause Society. Okay. And that has its issues as well. So 65% of female doctors who are going through menopause themselves do not even know where they're going to get support. This is shocking. And this is why we have doctors like, if you follow Dr. Mary Clara Haver, she's one of these people who is just furious that she didn't get the training that she needed. And that's why she's making such a fuss and trying to help women through this because she needed the help herself. So many doctors are out there like that. And then when you think about, I went through the Institute of Bioidentical Medicine training. It's a training program for doctors, but they allowed me to take it, even though I'm not a doctor, because I wanted to know, what is Dr. David Rosensweet, who's been treating women through menopause for, I think, for 3 decades now, what is he teaching doctors nowadays? It's a great program, to be honest. If anyone here is a health practitioner of any kind, I highly recommend going through that program and learning how to help women through menopause. But after I went through the program, I was like, boy, okay, this takes time. This takes time and it costs a lot of money. It's about, I think, anywhere between $7,000 and $20,000 for a doctor to get some extra training in menopause, and maybe even more. This is just what I know. And And then, of course, it takes time. You have to read the lectures, you have to attend classes, you have to take exams. What doctor wants to do that after going through medical school? I kind of get it why doctors don't want to be treating women through menopause. And very often they feel it's too complex. Women are just got all their hormones. It's not like you can get a one size fits all with hormone therapy. Okay, give her a patch and a cream and done. And it's going to be this dosage and that's it. Unfortunately, women need different formulas, different types of hormones if they're going to get treated through hormones. And if you're not going to treat women through with hormones, well, then you're going to talk a lot about lifestyle and diet and changes, which doctors should be doing anyways, whether or not you're giving her hormones. But that takes, again, a lot of time and money to learn these things if the doctor isn't interested in it themselves. So it doesn't have to be complex. This is what Dr. David Rosenstreet's teaching his doctors is it's really, he tries to simplify it. He says, yes, of course, you're going to have to meet with your patients several times. Okay. It's not like they come in, you give them their formula and done. Once they are on it, only 25% of the women who get a walk out the door on their first doctor's visits with their hormones get it right in terms of feeling great and being in testing. And they're actually in an optimal level to not only help them with their symptoms, but protect their future selves, because that's what Dr. David Rosensweet's all about. So, 25%, that means 75% of the women who are getting treated with hormone therapy are not either on the right formula or overdosed, underdosed, or still just feeling worse or don't feel anything at all. And that's why you need several visits to a doctor. And so if your doctor isn't telling you to come in after a month, let's say, or so, maybe earlier, or to please be in touch, then you got to find somebody new. That's why some doctors may go, you know what? God, I don't want to deal with this woman and she's up and she's down. And again, it doesn't have to be this way if the doctor gets the right training, but I can understand why they're just not interested. And so the doctors who are not trained in menopause medicine are dealing with antiquated information, if any at all. So it's just easier to not recommend it. It's easier to may say, well, hormones cause cancer. Let's just not even go there and treat the symptoms with what a doctor is trained in terms of antidepressants or sleep meds. They're familiar with this. They've been prescribing it for a while. And again, I get why they want to do what they know. So that's why a lot of online companies have been popping up to fill in this gap. And we'll talk about some of those online companies because they've been a lifesaver for many, many women. But before I do, I'm going to share my own journey because a lot of women ask me, what about you? How did you find a menopause doctor? Well, it's been really hard. I'm a nomad. I have no home. I live out of a suitcase, constantly changing countries. So it hasn't been easy. And when I first started looking into menopause and understanding what I need to look out for and taking it more seriously, I was 50 years old and I'm 54 now. And I found a doctor in Marbella, Spain, where I think I wasn't living there at the time. I just was visiting. And I come to this area a lot. It's because I used to live here. I have a community. And so I said, okay, well, found a doctor recommended by a friend of mine who has been treated for her menopause for 7 years successfully, very happy. And it's a functional medicine doctor. And at the time, I was learning more about the Dutch test. This is the dried urine test of comprehensive hormones. And I was intrigued. I wanted to do one, but you need a doctor who's trained in this. So this doctor was. So I said, okay, I'll go to see this doctor. Everything was kind of fine, but this doctor kind of fell off the rails. Unfortunately, he's just was not available anymore. And I was moving a lot too. And then I just said, okay, let's find somebody new. And of course, through all my amazing podcast hosts, I want to be treated by all of them. My podcast guests, I want to be treated by all of them. And another one I tried was Dr. Lauren Bramley. She's brilliant with hormones, menopause, and anti-aging. She's an A4M trained, it's an anti-aging medicine company, actually, or it's a organization that doctors have to get training in to be accepted to this. And it's anti-aging. So, ooh, this is right up my alley. She was brilliant. I really liked her, but unfortunately, she was unavailable too. She was a doctor. She's probably doesn't need to work anymore. And so she's do what she wants. And unfortunately, I couldn't follow up with her. I think she's brilliant. And whenever people ask me about her, I think she's fabulous, but you have to be ready to wait. And that's hard when you are trying to get the right formula if you're not feeling fabulous from day one. So I moved on to the Boulder Longevity Institute because I'm a huge fan of Dr. Elizabeth Yurth, and she knows so much about hormones and regenerative medicine and anti-aging, and she's on top of it and the whole biohacking thing. So I was happy to work with her team to sort out my hormones and at the same time helping me with joint issues, joint pain, osteoarthritis. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So that I have everybody in the same place understanding my hormones to help me with other issues. And that was great. Unfortunately, every time I needed to get a prescription, I wasn't in the US. And this is in Colorado, in the US. So that was the biggest challenge for me, is that I would prescribe these things, but I couldn't get a prescription that was valid in Spain or Thailand or wherever I was at the time. So I decided, well, I'm still in touch with them and I'm still have run by things but I figured I have to find somebody where I am more regularly. So those places are both Portugal and Spain is where I spend most of my time, where I could probably get a prescription. So I found another doctor, Dr. Infantes, who's let's say, anti-aging doctor. And he is helping me now through my hormones, and he's prescribing me things. The good thing is quite open. He's open-minded, and he knows how to read the Dutch test, although not as well as some others. But he's the best I can find right now. And I'm working together with Rowan Sanderson, and the Health Balance Clinic. And I talk a lot about him. We've had a couple of episodes already with him. He is I would say, functional medicine practitioner. He's not a doctor, but he works with doctors. And so I'm working with two people, Dr. Infantis and Rowan, at the moment, to try to get me in some optimal levels, and not only with my sex hormones and my hormone therapy and bioidenticals, but with a lot of other things. They're both interested in my future self, which I'm really excited about. So that is my journey thus far, and we'll see how that goes, how much, and again, it may change, who knows, but I'm always looking out for good people in any areas that I'm at. So that's my journey. So far, so good. And Roman is a star at reading Dutch tests, and he can help anyone around the world. So I'll have his contact in the show notes if you want to work with him. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. So that's really cool. So the reason why we need to find a specialist in menopause, because we need somebody who understands hormones, female hormones, and not only sex hormones. We want somebody who understands your thyroid, your insulin levels, your blood sugar, other biomarkers in the body. Maybe you are concerned about cardiovascular health, which you should be, since it's the number one killer for both men and women across the globe. And so you should be always looking at that anyways. But your hormones are like a symphony. It's not just, okay, let's get my sex hormones on point and forget about everything else. So we need somebody who understands hormones. And unfortunately, I've met too many people who cannot rely on their endocrinologist, who is a hormone specialist. I don't know why they don't excel in menopause and hormone therapy. I don't understand it, but I've heard too many complaints about that. And then we need doctors who understand that there are more than 5 symptoms of menopause. It's not just hot flashes and night sweats and moodiness and low libido and skipped periods. Honestly, there's more to that. There are 103 different symptoms of menopause. And if your doctor doesn't understand that, then it's time to move on. And we also need a doctor who's up to date and continues to attend conferences, whether they're online or in person. They read the latest research. They're open with their patients or their clients, and they don't push their own agenda, whatever that is, whether it's pro hormones or against hormones, doesn't matter. And that they practiced shared informed decision making. They give you the pros and cons of being on hormone therapy and the pros and cons of not being on hormone therapy, or of changing your diet and lifestyle or not changing. This is your body, your health, your choice. They should be open to giving you lots of different choices. And you'd make that decision together because you need to feel confident with whatever decision you've made. So let's talk about the different routes of how to get treated through or guided through this menopause journey. So, of course, you can get a doctor. Okay. That's what we'll talk about a little bit later. But first, I want to share with you that you don't always need to see somebody in person or a doctor in person. However, you'll likely need to get pap smears, ultrasounds, breast and endometrial lining screenings, bone screenings, blood tests. So you can do that perhaps with another doctor if you need to, or you can do some things like blood tests on your own. And because a lot of stuff is sold online, or you can go into these labs and get your labs without a doctor's prescription. Not always. In Europe, it doesn't seem to be quite difficult. And then another thing that you can do is get online care to prescribe hormones or guide you through your menopause journey, whether it's with or without hormones. But these are more popular ones, such as Reina, Meaty, Alloy, Her MD, Body Logic MD. These are virtual visits. You see a doctor on Zoom, and they're usually to prescribe hormones to get you started on menopause symptom relief. And it can be with or without a doctor. Sometimes they don't, you can skip the doctor visit, like with Reina, and you just need to fill out a questionnaire to make sure that you qualify for hormone therapy and then what kind or where to get you started. And then, so these are really convenient ways. This is one of those online businesses that have filled in a very needed gap. They can deliver hormones to your door. You don't need to get to a pharmacy. They're very cost effective. But some of the drawbacks to be aware of is that sometimes they give too low of a dosage because it doesn't take very much estrogen, for example, to suppress a hot flash. And so they may be only giving you minimal dosages when you may be interested in protecting your brain, your heart, vagina, your breasts, and your bones. And you may need higher dosages for that. So they need to know where the optimal levels are, whether it's through blood or urine or saliva, whatever they're looking at. They need to look at your future self. So that they are not necessarily looking at that. And that's where maybe a private doctor would be a better way to go. They're not highly personalized, and they usually don't do compounded formulas, meaning you are allergic to peanut oil, so you need a progesterone that doesn't use peanut oil, uses MCT oil or something else like that. So they can ask a laboratory to make a formula for you, or maybe you're not absorbing a certain formula and you really like the cream and you don't want to do a patch, and you just said, I want a cream, but with a higher dosage or a different ratio of certain hormones. If you need something like that, usually those online companies won't help you with that, but they have their pros and their cons. And then you can join a community with doctor support. So where a doctor or a nurse practitioner or somebody can have the right to prescribe you hormones. It doesn't have to actually be an MD or OBGYN. So these can be really cost effective in terms of it's maybe not as personalized one-on-one. Sometimes you do group sessions or sometimes not. Depends on the cost. So if you want more private one-on-one, then of course it gets more expensive. But if you're like, hey, I just want somebody to look at my labs and tell me how much progesterone, estrogen I need, and then I can check in with them anytime to see if I need to increase my estrogen or decrease my progesterone, then you can always check in with them kind of like anytime. And that this is a community such as Karen Martell. She's got a fabulous community for that and working with doctors. There's the Wise and Well women, Kristen Johnson and Maria Claps. Then there's the Women's Hormone Network, and this is where they would recommend doctors and practitioners. And that one is more for if you want physiological hormone treatment, if you want those higher dosages, they would have special practitioners with that. So there's a lot. Even my community, the Biohacking Menopause membership group, we have a doctor and we can find doctors for you as well. And there are a lot of women coming in and sharing their breakthroughs and what works for them or not. And also in my community, we have women from all around the world, which is really cool. Not my only my community, the other communities as well. And so if you are living in Greece and you're looking for a doctor in Greece, well then, hey, there's someone there who can say, I've found this great doctor, and you can check in with them. So I will leave in the show notes how to get involved with the biohacking menopause community. There's the private membership, but there's also the Facebook group, which is free. And so many women are in there too. So you can ask them, hey, I'm in, Connecticut. Who knows of a great doctor there? And then there are other menopause Facebook communities. There's a ton of them. I really like the hit play, not pause one. They're a great community, again, much more US based, but these are athletic women. So they've been such a help to me when I was going through my osteoarthritis journey, because it has a lot of women there. They're mostly in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they have been through what I've been through. And some of them are interested in hormones, some are not. There's another great community to tap into. Then there's the estrogen dominant support group by Kitty Martell. And I'll have links to these in the show notes as well. Most of these are US based solutions. Mine is quite international. So if you are outside of the US, then mine is a great community to join in. But if you're looking to prescribe hormones, if you're not, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter who you go with. But if you go, oh, I need someone to give me some estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone, you need to find a doctor in your own country. It's always best, because I've had my doctor give me a prescription in Spain, and I crossed the border into Portugal, and they don't want to have anything to do with my prescription. I need to go see a Portuguese doctor and then get a new prescription, and that's just more money. Usually that's how it works, but it's starting to change. So if you are outside of the US, or you want hormones, but you're not, your country is always changing, perhaps you're nomadic, then you can get in touch with me, because, well, there's a couple of things you can do. You can either, let's say you are living in Greece and you found this great doctor through wherever that's in the US. Well, what you can do is try to get a 6 to 12 month supply. Like, again, only if you already know your formula. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you haven't figured out what exactly works for you in terms of what dosage, what delivery method, and you're comfortable. Like, I know I've been on this for a year. It works great. Then you would get a 6 to 12 month supply. You can either deliver it, have some delivery. It's a little risky, because if customs find it, it'll probably send it back. You can say, get very creative, what's in the box. Or you can go yourself to that country. I know some women who are flip-flopping from one country to the next. So they'll go and get a 6 to 12 month supply from their country, just fill up their suitcase. Again, it can be costly, but sometimes if different compounding pharmacies, you can maybe make a deal. Or you can contact me, and I can connect you to someone who can work around this from any country. And I'm very, very curious how this is going to work, but I just recently found out. So let me know, and I can put you in touch with someone. Now let's talk about finding a doctor. Let's say, no, you want a physical doctor. You want to be somewhere where you feel comfortable, or at least a doctor in your state or in your own country. And I just want to remind you, you must have some kind of a doctor by now, an OBGYN or your regular practitioner. And if your regular practitioner or your OBGYN doesn't listen to you or give you what you need, or doesn't seem like they're qualified, you can fire them. It's okay. You can find another one. So what we're going to do is go doctor shopping, right? This doctor that you're going to find, or health practitioner, okay, it doesn't have to always be a doctor, will be your healthcare provider for the rest of your life. So I would recommend investing in that person, okay, because that person will be watching you, how you're aging over the course of the next decades. And it's really important to be able to protect your future self. And again, if you're interested, I am. So I know you may go, oh gosh, it's going to cost them a lot of money to see 2 or 3 doctors, but it's someone who's quite important. I think it's worth investing in. Now, if you are sometimes some of us are restricted by our medical care, our insurance, health insurance, but oftentimes health insurance can give you several different doctors to work with. And again, sometimes it's part of the program, sometimes not. That's up to you to decide. But I think it's really important to start doctor shopping for your future self. So that's one. Okay, we got to plan on that. The other thing is one of the most common ways to find a doctor is just to talk to your girlfriends, right? Or your mom or other family members or your aunt or your cousin. Someone who's probably thriving in menopause would be good. Someone who's really happy with their doctor and someone who's being treated through their menopause journey with success. So look out for those recommendations. Talk about menopause. Wow, what a concept, right? We need to normalize this conversation. It'll bring you together. It'll bond you. It'll help the next generation as well. But keep in mind, just because they're really happy with their doctor doesn't mean that you will be happy with their doctor too. There's a lot of things that happen. There's the bedside manner, and there's chemistry, and there's different thoughts and expectations. So I would gather several recommendations, 3 or 4, get started with, and see if you can make a list of 3 or 4 doctors that you're going to interview, and then do your research with that. So go to each doctor and say, okay, you're going through a test. Who's going to be my health practitioner and doctor for the next several decades? So that's one way to find a doctor. The next way is to search online. This is something I do a lot, and I help a lot of other women with this as well. So you want to use the keywords menopause doctor Alaska, menopause doctor Portugal, menopause doctor, whatever country or city that you're living in, right? And or state. Then you may want to search for some keywords like bioidentical hormones, menopause doctor, right? If you probably want to get a doctor that understands the differences between the synthetic and the bioidenticals. You can also use the keyword functional medicine. Not that all functional medicine doctors are trained in menopause, but you may have a shot there. The same thing for anti-aging, using those keywords, anti-aging doctor, A4M is another place. And again, you got to interview these doctors because they may be fabulous in anti-aging, but not know much about hormones or menopause, or maybe just biased in one way or another. But those are some really great ways to start searching. Then you can search according to your geography in terms of country, let's say the Menopause Society.org. That's an organization, and they train doctors through their method, their ideas, and what they think is the right way to do things. Same thing for the Menopause Foundation of Canada, British Menopause Society, European Menopause and Andropause Society, the Australasian Menopause Society, et cetera, whatever it is, wherever you are. You can try to find doctors that way. The only thing you got to be a little cautious because it's a little bit like those online businesses where they prescribe hormones, and what they do is not necessarily they just look to suppress the symptoms, which is already fabulous, wonderful, but they may not be looking at the whole picture or your future self, or get you at high enough levels that you are lowering the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's and osteoporosis and breast cancer and everything else that you may be concerned about. So that's a little bit of the drawback, but it's still a good place to look. And then you can always go to my blog article where it's called How to Find a Menopause Doctor. And I'll have that in the show notes. And that has doctors that are practitioners organized according to state, country, and some cities. So wherever you are in the world, I gather information from my community. If I ever see a woman who's so thrilled with her doctor, I say, hey, can you give me the name and the contact? And I add them to the list. These are not people I've vetted for. I don't know what they're doing. I just know that they are having patients who are very happy with them. So you can always go to that list and see if there's anyone there for you. And then the last great place to look for a menopause doctor is your compounding pharmacist. And again, this is somebody who works in a laboratory, okay, and they are making custom-made formulas from the raw ingredients. So let's say hormones, but they work with all kinds of drugs and medications because they need to tailor make it for the patient who can't, for some reason, take the pharmaceutical. And there's nothing wrong with pharmaceuticals. It's just if you are allergic to something, or you're not getting enough of a dosage, or you don't like the form or the delivery method, then you can ask compounding pharmacists to make a formula for you. They can modify things, so they can give you a cream, a liquid, a lozenge. They can create non-toxic formulas for you if you have some kind of allergies, or you just don't want all the toxic ingredients in there. They can adjust the dosages so they can meet your needs. They can combine different medications into one dosage. But in this case, they would say you could combine your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone all in one little pump. How convenient is that? But you'd only want to do that once you know your formula, because when we are just getting started with hormone therapy, then we may need to increase our progesterone a little bit, but keep estrogen the same, or keep progesterone the same, or tweak around the testosterone or DHEA, whatever it is. You have more wiggle room to play around with and find your optimal dosage when everything is separate. And again, I think women who are just getting started with hormone therapy, just start with the estrogen and progesterone, or even just the progesterone. That's like the first place you can start. And then you can add in the estrogen. And then if you still need it, then you can add in testosterone or DHEA or whatever else you need. Don't do everything at once. I wouldn't recommend doing that, because hormones are a symphony, right? One may go up and the others may go down, or vice versa, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. So that's why we need guidance through this to help us figure out our optimal dosage. So a compounding pharmacist basically has a unique view actually into what a practitioner is doing, and then may know which practitioners have the best knowledge about hormone therapy, because they know this stuff. They're like, this is going to be a great formula. So yeah, definitely tap into that. Just so you know, compounding, I know there's a lot of doctors out there who poo-poo compounding pharmacists and pharmacies. I have no idea why. I do have an idea why, because they think that these are not regulated. And it's absolutely false. If you go and Google this, you can see that they are highly regulated. This is a pharmacy, right? This is not just Joe Schmo in his back garage making formulas. So they're highly regulated. And one place to get them, or find pharmacy, at least if you're in the US, go to the Women's International Pharmacy. I don't know if it's .org or .com. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. Or you can go to the PCCA. That's the Professional Compounding Centers of America. And you can find compounding pharmacists there, and they can help you find a doctor or health practitioner. Okay. Once you are ready, you've got your list of doctors and you're saying, okay, I'm ready to interview everybody. What do you want to look for? Actually, I have a really great podcast on that first doctor's visit, which is quite comprehensive. And I'll put that in the show notes. You can go listen to that one to get a full view. In a nutshell, you want to ask, where has the doctor been trained in menopause? And hopefully you can always investigate that program, or that wherever it is they got the training. Then you can ask, how long has this doctor or health practitioner been practicing menopause medicine, or just menopause in general, if you're not interested in hormone therapy. And then when you go into the interview, you got to look at the chemistry. It's a feeling. Follow your gut intuition. We're so good at that, and sometimes we lose it. So dial into your intuition. If you get a bad feeling, just move on to the next doctor. And if you feel good, there's probably something there, because there's a communication style that the doctors have, or some bedside manner that you're looking for. And that's really important. That counts. You need to trust this person 100%. Okay. And they have to be open. They have to be open to different types of treatment options. And if they're only about hormones and that's it, and you're not so into that, well, then maybe it's not the doctor for you. If they only do pellets and you're interested in sprays, well, then time to move on. They should have a variety of styles and treatment options. And if you have any condition, if you have breast cancer or gone through it, or any other pre-existing conditions, like, you want to make sure the doctor is understanding of that and can work with that. And then also look for a doctor that stresses the importance of lifestyle and diet. I always say you can't out hormone a bad diet and lifestyle, right? We need the hormones, or if you are interested in that, but we also need the foundation to help us detox those hormones, to help us get through menopause and beyond in a really good condition. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about are the red flags. Get out your paper and pen, ladies, because this is important. You really want to, if you see any of these flags, these red flags, it's time to run the other way and move on to the next interview. If a doctor is dismissing your concern or minimizing menopause or saying, why this is not that big of a deal, and when you're feeling like it is, then it's time to move on. If the doctor doesn't know what bioidentical is or is not quite acknowledging it, that's not a good sign. If your doctor says estrogen causes cancer or hormones are bad, time to move on. Whether or not you're taking hormones or interested in it, that's a sign of antiquated information. If the doctor offers only one solution, like you can only do hormones, that's it, or there's only pellets or only patches, you need to be able to make a choice whether or not you want to take hormones or whether or not you want a patch, a cream, a gel, a spray, injections. There's tons of compounded, not compounded. Openness and variety is key. If your doctor is not willing to discuss any alternative treatments like the diet and lifestyle, or they don't have time for this and rushes you out the door, it's time to move on. And if a doctor cannot explain how menopause affects the brain, again, it's another red flag. And if they don't ask you questions about your history and your personal needs, no, find the next one. And I have in the other episode, what to expect with the first doctor visit, I have a list of questions that you should be asking your doctor and the doctor should be asking you. And those are green flags, right? If they're asking you those questions. And if the doctor isn't interested in collaborating with other specialists and people on your team, like maybe your neurologist or your cardiologist or your health coach, it's not an ideal person, right? So those are the red flags. So the extra bonus, I just want to remind you, is please advocate for your own health. This is your body. This is your temple. It's the only one we get to live in. Treat it with respect and love. So go and find your health practitioner who's going to guide you through this menopause journey. And when you go to that appointment or when you go for your interview, whoever that may be educated on menopause. Be prepared with questions, read books, listen to podcasts, find trusted resources online. I'll have a link to my blog article where I list all of these things. You can join my community and be armed for your first visit. Know what to expect. Again, those questions that you need to be asking and what the doctor needs to ask you. Go listen to that episode that I have in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening. We've reached the end. Thank you for getting to the end. Check out all the show notes for the links. If you have questions for me or need more help, just send me a message, whether it's on email or my website or social media. I am everywhere. Always Zora at Hack My Age. You'll find me. And you join my women's only menopause support group, Biohacking Menopause. It's a great resource. You'll find lots of women there. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it with a friend. It really helps us grow. If you can, write a review on Apple Podcast or a rating on Spotify. It's such a small gesture that makes a huge impact for me and gets the message to other women in the world. So have a good day, good night, or good morning, wherever you are, and I will see you next time.